This year has been a big year for the Division 2. Whether it be for year 7, the Game Pass, the game being on Xbox Game Pass, or even the Battle for Brooklyn DLC, there are multiple reasons why the player base keeps increasing for the Division 2. Now, with that, we have an influx with new and returning players, and a lot of questions regarding build videos. More specifically, different talents, why I use them in certain game modes and certain combinations, and why it works the way it does. Just a quick example, like Concussion, for example. I did a build maybe a week or so ago with the talent Concussion, and a lot of people were like, yeah, but it only works with marksman rifles. And that's not the case. So in today's video, what I'm going to do is I'm going to break down the best backpack talents, which ones to use and why, and in what combinations do they shine. I'll even give you some tips and tricks on how some of these talents work and how to take full advantage of them. So I hope you enjoy. Here we go. What's going on, YouTube? Kamikazevondoom here with another Division 2 video. So sit back, relax, grab that popcorn. Don't forget to hit that like, subscribe if you haven't already, and let me know what you think in the comment section below. But in today's video, it's going to be the best backpack talents to use and why. So we're not talking about gear sets. We're not talking about exotics. We are strictly talking about backpack talents. So these are going to be high-end items, typically brand set items, with different backpack talents. So let's break it down. Now, before we do this, let me just go ahead and skim through this really quick with you. So Vigilance, Tech Support, Adrenaline Rush, Bloodsucker, Unstoppable Force, Wicked, Perfectly Wicked, Concussion, Perfectly Calculated, Creeping Death, Fireworks Show. I had a few questions about that the other day. Perfect Combined Arms, Opportunistic Companion, Perfect Galvanize, Perfect Shock and Awe. Oh yeah, and Perfect Versatile. Like, there's not really too many talents to go over. And that's why I'm just dedicating a whole video on this. That way we can deep dive into them, show you different combinations and why you would use these talents over all the others. So we'll go through the talents that I chose. I'll show you different build examples of most of them. And then we'll go through the different backpack talents that I did not mention and why you would like to stay away from them. All right? So starting off with Vigilance, okay? Now, Vigilance is a really strong backpack talent. This backpack talent increases your weapon damage for nothing. Just put it on, and you have an increase to your weapon damage. However, this increased weapon damage is disabled whenever you take damage. So here's one of my tip and tricks for you, okay? It is when you take damage, as in your actual armor. This does not apply to shields, and this does not apply to bonus armor. So it's when you are taking actual damage to your armor on your character. So there are ways around keeping Vigilance active the entire time. Now, I know right off the bat, let's see if I have a perfect variant on me. That way I can showcase those. Yes, I do. So there is a perfect variant, and it's called Perfect Vigilance. Now, putting it side by side, you can see it's the exact same damage increase. So what I typically do is I advise people to not go for Perfect Vigilance because all it does is it lowers the disability cooldown. That's it. So you just want the damage, just use whatever backpack you want and put Vigilance on there. For example, I have my Walker and Harris bag, double crit, and then I put Vigilance. Now, let's see here. For a build example, here's one right here. Glass Cannon and Vigilance is typically the meta because you want the increase to damage and you're typically shooting first. You're not waiting for people to shoot you because then your talent's going to be disabled. So you want to throw it on a really hard hitting build, hit the enemy first, and whenever you get hit, you can either go back and cover, wait for it to come back, or just power through it, knowing that you'll get your damage back within a few seconds. But this would be one of your examples right there. Glass Cannon Vigilance is usually the go-to for this backpack talent. It's really strong. I know some people will do like Vigilance Unbreakable, Vigilance, Obliterate, but those are more into our talent combinations, and we could do a whole video talking about different talent combinations. But back to your backpacks. The next one I want to talk about, tech support. Tech support is really strong once you get the skill kill, okay? So for example, here is a tech support talent on my Wyvern backpack with skill damage, skill haste. And the reason for this is I would typically put this on like a turret drone build, and then whenever I get that first kill, I know that all that damage is going to be increased. Now the cool thing about tech support is the duration. It goes up to 25 seconds. So whenever you get a skill kill, boom, you know you're getting that buff for 25 seconds. And the cool thing about this is just like Obliterate and just like, other talents, you can refresh it and refresh it. So if you have multiple enemies and you're taking them out with your turret, drone build, or whatever, you're able to continuously refresh this timer and get that increase for 25 seconds and just keep stacking it and stacking it to where you could have the increase to skill damage the entire engagement as long as you get a kill within every 25 seconds. It's pretty cool. It's not bad. I would typically use this on like it would be like tech support kinetic momentum. That way you're building up your weapon damage, and then when you get your you're building up your skill damage, and then whenever you get a skill kill, you would get more skill damage from tech support as well. Moving on, Adrenaline Rush. Now, this is something I wanted to talk about because a lot of people are confused looking at the bonus armor bars in the Dark Zone compared to just normal open world gameplay. So the Dark Zone and the Light Zone are different. The Dark Zone is considered PvP, the Light Zone is considered PvE. So whenever you go to your stats, you can go to your, right here, your inventory options, and it says normalized stats right here. Now what this is supposed to do is show you what it would look like in PvP, because back in year 1 they were normalizing stats for PvP. They actually reverted this, but they still use the terminology for some weird reason. It should just say PvP stats and just leave it at that, but for some reason it says normalized. It's just a weird terminology that they're using for no reason, because it's not normalized. It's actually just your PvP stats. So whenever you turn this on, it will then have a blue outline over your build, and it will show you PvP numbers. So if I go back and turn it off for PvE, you can see that my Adrenaline Rush, whenever you are within 10 meters of an enemy, you gain 20% bonus armor. But again, turning it to PvP, that 20% bonus armor drops down to 10. So it's actually half for what it is in the open world considered, compared to the Dark Zone or Conflict. So whenever you're like, man, I'm so tanky, I could do open world heroics all day, but as soon as I get into the Dark Zone, I feel squishy. And it's because you're getting half of that bonus armor. So just remember that some of these talents change between PvE and PvP for quote unquote balancing reasons. Next up, we have Bloodsucker. So Bloodsucker is really fun. So Bloodsucker, you could pair up with Intimidate, and you can continuously get bonus armor and just have it sit there and stack while having the Intimidate proc at the same time. A lot of people like to use it with Adrenaline Rush, and yes, that does work. But the cool thing, Adrenaline Rush only works whenever you're within 10 meters of an enemy, and it's only for 5 seconds. Where Bloodsucker, whenever you kill an enemy, you get bonus armor for 10 seconds. And this one stacks up to 10 times. So you could have 100% bonus armor compared to 60. I mean, it's a big difference here. Now, different combinations for Bloodsucker. You could use this with like an LMG build. You could use this with a shotgun build, some sort of like survivability build. Because the Bloodsucker, what you're doing is you're increasing your survivability by adding all of the bonus armor. So you want to typically have this on some sort of like tank or tank DPS hybrid type of build, something like that, to where you can enjoy the extra survivability, but then also have some sort of damage to fall back on. And that's why I kept bringing up Intimidate, because with Intimidate, as long as you have that bonus armor, it builds up in Intimidate stacks. And then as soon as you get up and close with an enemy, you take them out instantly. It's a lot of fun. Now, talking about LMG builds and building up stacks and having a lot of fun, you have to talk about Unstoppable Force. Now, Unstoppable Force builds up weapon damage as you're killing an enemy. Now, this one stacks up to 5 times, and it's for 15 seconds. And you're starting to see a trend here. I really enjoy the backpack talents that have long durations. That way you can take full advantage of it. Where Adrenaline Rush, yes, it is really good for survivability, especially if you get swarmed by enemies or you're near a spawn, something like that, and they're trying to overrun you. You could get all the bonus armor stacks instantly. It is really fun to use. But something, like Bloodsucker, Unstoppable Force, or even Wicked or Perfectly Wicked, you're talking about durations that are like nearly 10 times as long as Adrenaline Rush. Remember, Adrenaline Rush, that's only for a few seconds. It's really nothing compared to like Perfectly Wicked, which is active for 27 seconds. You see what I mean? I don't know. I don't know. But I do tend to lean towards the talents that give you more buffs or more durations of a buff. That way you can have more, of those advantages at your fingertips. Now, Unstoppable Force, something to use with this one. I would typically put this with a Pestilence, because the Pestilence goes off of weapon damage for the ticks, for the Plague of the Outcast talent on that weapon, and this increases your weapon damage over time. So you could get your weapon damage even higher, and then that could increase your Pestilence Plague of the Outcast ticks even higher, and then you're just clearing content with ease. Now, dropping down to Wicked and Perfectly Wicked. I have both of these right next to each other because I wanted to show you the differences. So here they are side by side. That way you can see. It's the exact same weapon damage, again, kind of like Vigilance and Perfect Vigilance, where it gives you the same weapon damage no matter which variant you use. However, this one, it's the duration. It's not the cooldown, it's the duration. And also, remember with Wicked, Perfectly Wicked, this is another talent that you can keep refreshing over and over and over and over. And it's for an extended amount of time. The cool thing is Wicked works very well for run and gun purposes because the 20-second duration is really good. It's strong. However, the Perfectly Wicked, in my opinion, is even stronger because then you could take on harder content and rely on that buff to stay active even longer from that 20-second duration to 27-second duration. It's a pretty big deal. And it works really good because the Perfectly Wicked is on the Golem gear. So status effects actually increases the duration of that status. So applying a status will increase your weapon damage, and if you have more status effects, they're on a status even longer. So it's not bad, but there's a different way of thinking about it. So Wicked refreshes every time you put an enemy on a status, right? And the duration is not based off of how long that enemy is on a status. So technically, Golem gear shouldn't matter. The status effects shouldn't matter because with Wicked, all you're doing is getting that initial status, even if it's just for 1 second, and then you get 20 seconds of increased weapon damage. So what I typically do is I'll throw it on something like Grupo Sombra, and then that way I have a full damage build and I'm getting the Wicked proc at the same time. I don't care if they're on a bleed for 10 seconds or 2 seconds. It doesn't matter. As long as I get this talent to activate, I'm good to go. And that's exactly what I do. I'll throw that on like a Trauma or like a Ridgeway's Pride, something like that. But again, that's going into different talent combinations, and we'll talk about that later. We're just trying to stick to high-end backpack talents. Next one is the one that actually sparked the idea for this entire video, and that's Concussion. Okay? Concussion works for all weapons. However, the duration in which you get the buff is only increased if you are using a marksman rifle. So it reads here that headshots will increase your weapon damage. Yeah, it will. It's only for 1.5 seconds. However, it's for 5 seconds if you're using a marksman rifle. However, it still works for all weapons in the game. And that's why the other day I was using it with the Bighorn and having so much fun, because the Bighorn requires headshots. Concussion requires headshots. So doing both, one and the same, good to go. You're getting a nice little 2-for-1 special. And with Concussion, if you get a headshot kill, you get even more weapon damage. And that one is double the duration. So for me personally, for Concussion, I'm not doing it to just shoot someone in the head. I'm going for that headshot kill, baby, because I want that increase to weapon damage to be 15%, not 10, and I want that duration to be 10 seconds, not 1.5. Like I've been saying, you want the backpack talents with the longer duration. That way you can take more advantage of these buffs. Next one is actually a curveball here. So here's Perfectly Calculated. Now, I've been getting a few questions about this one because of oxidizer builds. And yes, this is amazing for a chem launcher or oxidizer build. However, this does not increase your damage at all for that skill. So what I would do is stick with the oxidizer, because the oxidizer just goes off of pure skill damage and multiplicative damage. It does not go, off of different status effects or anything like that. So what you could do is sit in cover, spam oxys, and as you're getting kills, you would get those oxys back, spam more oxys, get more oxy kills, get them back, spam more oxys, bada bing, bada boom. All right? That's how you would use this backpack. I've been asked about this quite a bit. I do not use it with any other type of skill build. I would typically go tech support, creeping death, or perfect shock and awe. Or perfect combined arms. All of those before Perfectly Calculated, unless I am using an oxidizer build. Because then you can get your oxys faster, and the more oxys you have on the ground, the more damage you're going to do. It stacks, it's a lot of fun, it does a lot of damage. I admit. But that's the only reason why I would use this backpack. Next up, we have Creeping Death. Now, this is actually one of my favorite backpacks to use, okay? Now, just to let you know, in my loadouts, you can see here's Creeping Death right here on an Eclipse Protocol build. Here's Creeping Death on a high-end status build. Yeah, we use Creeping Death quite a bit. Now, the reason why I use Creeping Death is for the transfer of status effects. This is super deadly, and this is super useful for speed runs, for clearing ads, for helping, crowd control with a group. This is really good for legendary content, for pretty much everything in the game. Because what this does is it spreads that initial damage instantly. So say you are using this on like a Eclipse build, right? So you would use this on an Eclipse build. Well, we already know that with Eclipse Protocol, the status effects will transfer whenever you kill that enemy. However, what if you had 4 enemies on a burn initially. Then you have 4 chances of that status to transfer on kill from the Eclipse protocol. All right? So what would be better? You shoot one enemy with a burn and you burn them quick to have it spread, or you spread it instantly to 4 enemies, and then once they die, it could spread 4 times over to all the other enemies. Not only that, but if you burn 4 enemies, they don't just all just stand there on fire. Sometimes they'll run in different directions, and that will help you transfer the status even further. It's a lot of fun. It does a lot of damage. And if you're doing legendary content and you use this with like a jammer and you jam all of the enemies and it spreads with creeping death, it could jam all of their drones, Wallybots, DARPA dogs all at the same time. So just remember that. Not only that, but with like a jammer and creeping death, you could stagger or stun all of the enemies instantly and then hit them with a fire sticky. I mean, there's so many good things with creeping death. I talk about it all the time because creeping death is such a really good talent. Use this one with status effects because you typically want the status effects to last long enough to where it kills the enemy and transfers over. So that's what I do. Really, really strong talent for skill builds and status skill builds. Next up, we have the Festive Delivery. Now, this bad Mamma Jamma is crazy strong. So it turns your concussion grenades into festive grenades. So what I do with this one is you just put it on a concussion, and if you hit one enemy, it will hit 2 others instantly. The cool thing about this is you can use it in PvP, PvE, it does not matter. So all you do is you throw a grenade, and watch this. It's a festive grenade. See? And then it hits all the other enemies again. Did you see all that extra damage? Stupid strong. Now, the cool thing about this is it's a Gruppo backpack, and 2 pieces of Gruppo increases your explosives damage. And guess what? That increases your grenade damage. So put this on with 2-piece Gruppo, and you could clear whole sections of PvP, whole sections of rogue agents, whole sections of NPCs just with 1 grenade. Because if you hit 1 enemy, it then hits 2 others within 20 meters. And 20 meters is quite insane. That's quite the freaking radius on that bad Mamma Jamma. I'm just saying. Next up, we have Hanayu, Perfect Combined Arms. This one, shooting an enemy increases your skill damage. Now, I only go with the Perfect Combined Arms because this actually increases the skill damage. It gives you a bigger buff. Like I said, you want to go for the talents that give you a bigger buff or a big duration, right? This one gives you a big buff. Now, the duration's only 3 seconds, but it's while you're shooting an enemy. So as long as you're shooting an enemy, you will have this. And it is very strong with turret drone builds, things like that. You want skills that are hitting the enemy while you're shooting the enemy. That way you get the buffs and that skill damage at the same time. Now, we're actually near the bottom here where we're getting a lot of duplicates. Creeping Death, Wicked, Creeping Death, Vigilance. All right, here. Opportunistic. Super strong, but only for shotguns and marksman rifles. Now, I know everyone was getting it confused with Concussion. Concussion was only increasing the duration when using a marksman rifle. This one, you actually have to have a marksman rifle or shotgun. I highly recommend using it with a shotgun because once you hit them the one time and you see this indicator, it is insanely strong. 10% amp damage on a shotty is next level fun. Put it together on a tank build with a shotgun. I'm telling you, do like perfectly unbreakable with opportunistic and you will go banana pancakes. It's crazy fun. Companion is good. The only thing I would say about Companion, well, 2 things. The first thing is that you have to be within 5 meters, so just prepare for a run and gun close quarters build, maybe a tank build. Another thing is you can combine this with the chest piece Perfect Companion, making a Companion meta, because Companion does stack with Perfect Companion. So you can put them together and have a double Companion meta We could talk about that in a separate video whenever we talk about talent combinations. Another thing with Companion, you could have a Seeker Mine at your feet, and Companion will stay on the whole time, just so you know. And the last three, and we're out of here. I don't want to take up too much time. So Perfect Galvanize. Trick and tip with this. Use it with the Scorpio. The Scorpio will proc this, guaranteed. All right? Use this with the Scorpio, guaranteed. Strategic alignment. You have to use this with status. Remember that the mortar turrets, the explosive seeker mines, things like that, they also apply a bleed. So if you use this with a seeker mine and the mortar turret or the artillery turret, both of those apply a status effect, and you get that buff for 27 seconds. Remember, high duration. That's what you want. And finally, we have Perfect Versatile here. So Perfect Versatile is very strong, but remember, the two weapons have to be different. You have to use like an AR and an SMG, or a rifle and a shotty. You can't use two SMGs. You can't use two shotguns. They have to be different. So what I typically do, you could go close quarters, shotty, SMG, or you could go AR, SMG, AR, shotty, something like that. But the reason why is the shotgun and SMG damage is amplified by 45%. It is ridiculously strong. So what I typically do is AR, shoot them at range. When they get close, switch over SMG and just burn them down. But all right, that is it for all of your best backpack talents to use and why. There are really no other honorable mentions, and if you think there is, let me know in the comments and we can discuss it. But those are the best ones, in my opinion, to use right now in the Division 2, and hopefully I explained why to use them. If you have any questions, again, hit me up in the comments. I will gladly answer them. But I hope you found this video helpful or informative in any way, shape, or form. And if you did, please hit that thumbs up, support the channel by subscribing, and I'll see you in the next one. I'm Kamikazevondoom, and peace out.